Good morning, St Nicholas class. I hope you're all very well. I hope you enjoyed our first video we did on Tuesday and you've had fun creating your Banksy style templates and artwork. So your topic is all about urban pioneers and looking at urban landscapes, finding out about their history, looking at landmarks. I know Miss Putland has asked you to look into Horsham's history as part of some of your topic tasks, and also to look at landmarks in urban landscapes such as the Shard in London. And we've obviously spent a bit of time looking at how graffiti is present in urban landscapes and looking at Banksy. So today, what we're going to look at is a different urban landscape. We are going to look at Berlin, which is in Germany. We're going to find out a little bit about its history, how it changed Berlin, and how graffiti played a part in that piece of history. So first, we're just going to watch a very short video that just gives you a quick overview of the history.
For over 40 years, Europe was roughly split into two. In the West, people had more money and more of a say on how their countries were run. Germany was also divided into East and West. But parts of its capital city, Berlin, stayed free, and thousands of East Germans began escaping into the West. So in 1961, the East German government built a wall to stop them. Made of concrete and eventually around 100 miles long, it was watched over by armed guards. Lots of families were separated when the wall went up. It's thought more than 100 people were killed trying to get past the wall from east to west. On November the 9th, 1989, the East German government said people from the east could finally cross into the west. People were surprised it happened and there was huge celebration. This is the moment it was covered by Newsround.
East and West Germans are now free to meet whenever they want. Hello again, and today most of the news is about what's been called the most important European event since the Second World War.
Berlin is a very different city today. These children grew up here and told us what they thought of the war.
I think living in a city divided by a wall was very hard for people living in the east and west side.
When I think of the Berlin Wall, it makes me feel sad for all the people who had to be separated from their loved ones.
I think of all the people who tried to get over, but not all of them survived.
I think it must have been hard for people living in a city divided by a wall.
You're away from everything you used to have.
You can't imagine it right now, but I would feel that I would be an animal, like in a cage every day, every night, and like one wall like through you and maybe your friends or family. That's very hard.
I think it's important to remember the anniversary of the wall coming down because of those people who lost their lives.
So many people risked their lives to bring it down that it would be unfair not to remember them.
When the wall came down, it changed Berlin and it changed Europe. A year later, East and West Germany joined together to become the single country that is the Germany we know today.
Okay, so Berlin has a very interesting history, and a lot happened that changed how it was, and it looks very different today than what it did. So let's just go through and learn a little more. So on November the 10th, 1989, West Berliners flocked to the Berlin Wall, which had separated their city for 28 years. So for 28 years, Berlin, which is one city, was split in half by this wall going right through the middle. At midnight, they flooded through the checkpoints. People would use hammers and picks to knock away chunks of the wall, while cranes and bulldozers pulled down section after section. Soon the wall was gone and Berlin was united for the first time since 1945. So for 28 years, Berlin was split into two halves. And this could mean that you were separated from your family, from your friends. Some people were separated from their jobs. If they lived in the east and their job was in the west, they could no longer work. So they had a physical barrier put up between them for 28 years. And this all happened because after the Second World War, Germany was split into 4, and it was divided into 4 by the Russians, France, Britain and the United States. And Russia took control of East Germany. The capital city of Berlin, which you can see on the map here, was in East Germany and was also divided into 4 sections. So even though it was in East Germany, it was divided into 4. The capital city was split up. Lots of people in East Germany decided that they didn't want to live under Russian rule, so they started moving to the west of Germany. However, the Eastern leaders started to worry they were losing too many people from the east side. And so they created a boundary going through Berlin on the east side to stop people crossing over to the west. And this went up very quickly. With no warning, they just put a fence up and divided Berlin. The Berlin Wall was more than 140 kilometres long, so it was miles and miles long. In June 1962, a second fence was built 100 metres further into East Territory. If any houses got trapped in between those 2 fences, they lifted them and relocated the residents of those houses. This was done to stop people being able to climb the fence. They wanted to make it more difficult. So they put barbed wires up, they put anti-vehicle trenches so vehicles couldn't drive into the wall and try and get through. And they had guards guarding the wall at all times. You can see the wall stretching through, right through the middle of Berlin. And the original fence and the concrete fence that got put up. So, during the 28 years where the wall was up, 5,000 people did successfully manage to leave Eastern Germany and go to the west. However, there were casualties when people tried to do this, and unfortunately some people trying to cross the wall did die. Trying to cross the wall was a criminal offence, so they had officers patrolling it at all times. The people who were successful managed to get across this wall by digging long tunnels, taking hot air balloons, sliding along aerial wires and flying or driving sports cars at full speed into the wall to try and make a hole in it. The wall meant there was widespread depression across Berlin. So it made the people of Berlin incredibly unhappy as they were separated permanently from their friends and their family who maybe lived on the other side of the city. The Berlin Wall coming down happened very quickly, nearly as quickly as how it went up. There were signs that the East German people were fed up and they decided to open the exit point for those who wanted to flee to West Germany. Then on November the 9th, 1989, so 28 years later, East Germany made an announcement that the border points would be open, which means that people from the east or the west could go through to the other side. Germans were in absolute shock. There was no warning of this, and a lot of Germans, especially those who lived in Berlin, flocked to the borders to see if they could get through. Very quickly, the wall was inundated with people trying to bring it down. They had hammers, chisels. They were using vehicles to break down this wall into huge chunks, so they were breaking down the barrier and getting rid of this wall. People were finally being able to hug and kiss and hold on to their loved ones. There was singing, there was crying, there was complete happiness that this barrier that had been up for 28 years had finally come down. Today, there is a small section of the wall that still remains. The longest is in the east side of Germany, which has become an international memorial of freedom. So now this part of wall that remains in East Germany represents freedom and represents the struggle the people living in Berlin went through and how important it was when that wall came down. So the Berlin Wall, because it stretched for miles and miles and miles and it was a solid concrete wall, it did through time become covered in graffiti. And there's still the constant argument that is graffiti vandalism And is it just a mess? And is it people defacing public property and it's a crime? Or is it a way of people to express how they feel, to be able to get messages across? So on the top one you can see these are lots of tags. So I know you all had a go at doing your graffiti name tag. This wall is just full of different people's names. We've got another piece down here which is more like a piece of artwork, but again it shows someone's opinion. It shows people trying to break down this wall to try and get through hundreds and hundreds of people. Again, another piece of artwork on the wall showing how people wanted to break through it and showing the divide. This represents the years, every year that the Berlin Wall was up. Okay, so the Berlin Wall was covered all the way along with pieces of artwork and graffiti. And a lot of these pieces were for them to be able to voice how they felt. So, dancing to freedom, no more wars, no more walls. Okay, show you some other pieces we've got. Here's some other pieces that were put on the Berlin Wall. So again, you've got the two gentlemen at the bottom reading a newspaper, but then a divide is put straight down the middle of them, which represents exactly what the wall did to Berlin. Okay, you've got more pieces of artwork here. Notice they're always, most of them are always very colourful, very large, to really catch your eye. This is one of the standing pieces of artwork that's still there today on the remaining piece of wall. Okay, so in this instance, the graffiti was used as a way of shouting out, as a way of expressing how they felt when a physical barrier was put between them and their loved ones, them and their families, their friends and their jobs. So what I wanted us to do today is think about barriers, think about something being put in front of you that stops you reaching out to the people you love and being able to see them, and what you would do in that situation. So although we do not have a physical barrier in front of us, we do not have a big concrete wall, what we do have is there is a barrier in front of a lot of us at the moment, because a lot of us are unable to see some of our family and some of our loved ones due to what's going on in the world right now. So you can have a choice of two tasks today. You can do both. It's completely up to you what you would like to do. First task is, again, an arty task. It's a graffiti task. So I would like you to either design it for the Berlin Wall, or imagine there's a huge concrete wall going down the middle of Horsham. And all of a sudden, overnight, we've become separated from our friends and our loved ones and our school and our jobs. And I would like you to design a piece of artwork to send a message. So you might want to do it in Banksy style. You might want to put your name tag on it. Remember, graffiti tends to be incredibly colourful, but most importantly, it leaves a message. So what message would you like to give? It may be a message of anger, and you may be angry that you can't see the people you love. Or it may be a message of love, and you're reaching out and you want to give people positivity and hope. The second task, if you'd like to do it, is putting yourself in the position years and years ago of you living in Berlin and being a young child, and all of a sudden that wall appearing in the city you lived in, and your family and your friends maybe being on the other side of that wall. And I'd like you to think about writing a diary entry of that day. How would you feel if all of a sudden this physical barrier was put up in front of you and you were separated from the people you love? Okay, so there's a couple of tasks to choose from. Have fun with both of them. Please do send me them if you'd like to. I'd love to read your diary entries or see your incredible artwork. I know how creative you all are. And I will see you next week. Okay, bye.